We're live.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Durham Planning Commission. The Durham Planning Commission are appointed members as an advisory board to the City Council and the Board of County Commissioners. And you should know that any of the items before us this evening, the elected officials will have the final vote on any of those issues. Tonight's meeting is being held virtually using the Zoom meeting platform. In this virtual meeting platform, participants do not have the ability to talk or be seen on video by default. To maintain meeting decorum and a discernible record of the meeting, the chat function has been disabled. Speakers will be given the opportunity to speak during the meeting. If you've been pre-registered, we'll call you when we get to the case, and you'll be able to give us your name, your mailing address, and make your comments. If you joined the meeting and didn't sign up in advance, you'll have the ability to raise your hand using the Zoom function. If you've dialed by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. To join the meeting, to call in, you can dial 301-715-8592. Finally, all motions are stated in the affirmative, so if a motion fails or ties, the recommendation is not favorable. May we have the roll call, please?
Good evening, Chair Busby and other commissioners. Chair Busby, I'm aware of two absences for this evening. That would be Commissioner McIver and Commissioner Cease. Do you know of anyone else?
I believe Commissioner Durkin as well.
Okay. All right. We'll start the roll call. Commissioner Amendola?
Here.
Baker?
Here.
Busby?
Here.
Cameron?
Here.
Cutright?
Here.
Kinchin?
Here.
Lowe?
Present.
Miller?
Present.
Morgan?
Here.
And Williams?
Here.
Okay, great. And we have a quorum.
Thank you.
If
we
it's
could make a
appropriate,
motion
Mr.
for-
Chair, I was going to make that motion.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller.
I move that we excuse from service this evening Commission members Durkin, McIver, and Cease.
Seconded.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Morgan, and we'll have the roll call vote.
Okay. Amendola?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Busby?
Yes.
Cameron?
Yes.
Cutright?
Yes.
Kinchin?
Yes.
Lowe?
Aye.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Morgan?
Yes.
And Williams?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And we will move to the approval of the minutes and the consistency statements from our May 11th, 2021 meeting. If there are any items that people would like to make changes to, we can make those now. And if not, we can have a motion for approval.
Chair Busby, I just wanted to let the commissioners know that we did make some edits based on Commissioner Cease's request. So the minutes were updated online per Commissioner Cease's request, hopefully. I'm assuming they were.
And just out of curiosity, which direction did we go in? He had two options, to dial it back or add a little detail.
I think we added some detail. The staff member, Mr. Cahill, took care of that, and I apologize. It was late night last night. I think we went with option 2. So option 2. Mm-hmm.
Great. That was my preference. I'm comfortable accepting a motion and a second if commissioners you are.
Is there any way to share a screen so that the people who are participating can know what we're talking about, since we're all talking about something that happened by email offline? Even though it's just the minutes, I'm always a little uncomfortable when we do business cryptically.
if I could get someone to share the minutes on the screen, please. The minutes for May 11th. And we'll just scroll down to, yeah, they're working on it right now. We'll scroll down to that section so everyone can see it.
Grace, while we do that, in the interest of saving time, if you, do we have any adjustments to tonight's agenda?
Well, staff does not have any adjustments to tonight's agenda. We would like to remind everyone that we will be inviting Commissioners Miller and Kinchin back next month for resolutions. I just wanted to point that out to be sure. We would like for both of them to be present next month, and we will make sure we do that at the beginning of the meeting if that works for them. But no adjustments tonight, and I would like to state for the record that all public hearing notices were carried out in accordance with state and local law.
Thank you.
So it looks like our excellent staff is going straight to the section that was updated in the minutes. And we added the information about the purpose of the PDR district as stated in the UDO.
All right, good. Was it just that one section?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, under those circumstances, Mr. Chairman, if it's in order, I'll move the approval of the minutes as amended.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Amendolia, and we'll have the roll call vote.
Hang on one second. Okay, Amendolia,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Busby,
Yes.
Cameron,
Yes.
Cutright,
Yes.
Kinchin,
Yes.
Lowe,
Aye.
okay, Miller,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
Cease. Oh, Cease is not here. Excuse me. Williams.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move to our first case this evening. It is case Z1900027 Griffin Place, and we'll start with the staff report.
Just one moment, let me pull that up. There it goes. Good evening. Danny Coulter with the Planning Department. If you recall, this case was continued from the April 13th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting to allow for determinations to be made on the Northern Durham Parkway alignment for this site and the adjacent proposed industrial site to the south. Since it's been 2 months that the case has been heard, I am going to provide another preview of this case. The request for the case Z1900027 Griffin Place was received from Fred Shekels of 10 Oaks Realty LLC, who's the applicant, and Jamie Guerrero, Morris and Ritchie Associates in North Carolina, PA, acting as the agent for 3 parcels located at 2308 East Gear Street, 2315 Farrell Road, and 2402 Carpenter Road, totaling 84.84 acres. The site is within the county's jurisdiction, submitted under the city's approval for pending annexation of case BDG 19-00015. The applicant proposes to change the zoning designation of the site from rural residential RR, residential suburban 20 RS20, and industrial light IL to planned residential development residential 5.5878 PDR 5.578 for a maximum of 462 residential dwelling units, 168 single family, and 294 townhouses. The site's located in the suburban development tier and the Falls Jordan Watershed Protection District B or FJB overlay, and also the Mass Transportation Corridor I-85 overlay, or MTC I-85. The future land use map or the FLUME is designated as office, low density residential, industrial, and recreation and open space. If the zoning is approved, the recommended FLUM proposed is low density or low to medium density residential and recreation open space. In the zoning context, if you notice the area hatched in, that's hatched is the site. And
Mr. Culture, sorry to interrupt. We actually can't see anything on the screen at the moment.
oh, it's not showing up. Excuse me. Let me go back. It's not being shared.
I don't see it.
I apologize. It didn't share. Is it being shared now?
We're getting there.
Okay. So that the actual, let me do a cancel so that, let me stop share. Do a screen share. It should have actually pulled up the presentation to share. My apologies.
There we go.
All right, let me see if that clicks on. There it goes. Okay. So can you see the arrow map or the context map now? Is that showing up?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I apologize. It just didn't share. Anyway, in the hatched areas, the site, if you notice, there's adjacent industrial and commercial to the north, and also there are several different zonings, rural residential, RS20 and PDR types of zonings. And also the site is being on the right, it shows the proposed zoning is PDR. Aerial photo, it's currently undeveloped with a mixture of pine and hardwood vegetation. There are also jurisdictional streams and some honey deer floodplain. If you notice to the north of the site, this is a super Walmart, and also there is the Glen Elementary School and surrounding neighborhood single-family housing and vacant land in all directions. There's key text commitments for the site, 5-foot sidewalk connection for the intersection of the site access in East Gear Street to the existing sidewalk located along Northeast Gear Street that fronts Glen Elementary School, 25-foot greenway easement along the western parcel boundary. They're proposing electric vehicles charging stations. They're increasing their stormwater capture systems to a 100-year storm event, several recreational open space components, and also there are many traffic commitments listed for this as required for the TIA. Existing site conditions, again, mixed pine and hardwood. Site is bounded by Gear Street, and also the parcels are split by Farrell Road, Junction Road, and Carpenter Roads. Proposed conditions, there's proposed collector street network by the Northern Durham Parkway. It shows the external access points, the tree coverage locations, project boundary buffers, maximum densities, the required open spaces, the impervious surfaces are committed at 50%. And since the previous public hearing along the Northern Durham Parkway, the applicant has committed to proffering project boundary buffers adjacent to both sides of the Northern Durham Parkway. And again, you see the floodplain and the stream buffers to the south. And the comprehensive plan policies are all being met except for the future land use designation. So if the applicant, if the plan is approved, the request for the FLUM designation would be for the low and medium density designation. And staff has no other comments and is available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cultra. We will open the public hearing. And we've got a number of individuals who signed up to speak on both sides. So we will start with the proponents. I'm going to jump around here a little bit. My list is it's all kind of commingled, so I'm sort of unpacking it as we go. But we can start with the applicant team, which I know is Jared Edens and I believe Fred Shekels. And Mr. Edens, if you can kick us off and let us know who else is with your team, and then I can work through the proponents from there.
Thank you, Chair Busby. Jared Edens with Edens Land. Yeah, Mr. Shekels is our client, the developer on the project. I believe that's the only team member that we have with us this evening. Again, I appreciate everyone's time tonight. As Danny mentioned, this project was deferred at the April Planning Commission meeting, mainly due to alignment concerns with Northern Durham Parkway. I'll just try to hit a few high points and give an update on the parkway and the alignment. As you recall, at the time, we definitely lobbied against the deferral. We felt the application could proceed as is. We did not win that argument, obviously, but we wanted to take advantage of the time that we had. So we did have an additional neighborhood meeting about 2 weeks ago, and we were able to make at least one plan change as a result of some of the concerns of one of the neighbors, and I guess I'll present that now. And this was a late change as a result of the meeting, so it's not on your plan, but we were able to widen one of the buffers to 50 feet on the property. This is adjacent to Mr. Badula's farm. I can name the parcel numbers later for clarification if necessary for the change, but just want to let you know we widened the buffer per his request. As Danny mentioned, we added the buffer to Northern Durham Parkway. That was a specific concern of some of the Planning Commission members at the last meeting. Speaking of Northern Durham Parkway and just traffic in general, so we had a joint meeting on Friday of last week with the Scannell Group, the Industrial Park property, and ourselves and NCDOT. As a result of that meeting, so yesterday we got an email from DOT that was approving the compromise alignment that both groups were shooting for at the last meeting. As you recall, there were 3 alignments shown. One was our preferred, one was Scannell's preferred, and then there was a blue interim alignment that was the compromise alignment. DOT did approve that as a result of Kimberly Horn's hard work and our meeting on Friday. So I was glad to hear that. I think we have the alignment issue resolved. I also want to point out, as part of that meeting, we were able to convince DOT that this would be a 35-mile-an-hour section of Northern Durham Parkway. As you recall, we've had recent, the Parcel K Planning Commission case, where Brightleaf residents are obviously having issues with Northern Durham Parkway and the 45-mile-an-hour speed near the school. We made the argument that we have the same condition here. We have a parkway and a school nearby and residents against the park, adjacent to the parkway. So DOT went along with us there, and we know that the posted speed limit for this section will be 35, which we think is a win for everyone. General traffic comments. I know there are concerns about traffic, but I mean, honestly, we don't have many residential projects that are committing to 3 traffic signals. If warranted by DOT, 2 of those signals are at 85 on and off ramps, which I think is a benefit to the community. And per the staff report, if you just look at the numbers, the zoning is a great reduction in trips from what the current zoning is. It's almost 9,000 less trips in a 24-hour period as compared to the current zoning. The staff report also points out that Farrell Road, which is the main road impacted here, is only at about 30% capacity currently. So although I understand the concerns, I think with the signals and existing conditions, I don't think it would be a long-term issue. Stormwater, we did detain the 100-year storm, as mentioned previously. I want to talk a little bit about density, if I could. We're at about 5.6 an acre. Some argue that that's too high and it should be lower, and I understand those arguments, but I also think that you could make an argument that it should be higher than what it is. To be honest, if you look at the area in general and its location, it's definitely undergoing a change. There's several reasons to have density here. I mean, you have very close proximity to shopping, very close proximity to major employment. It's not just the 1 million square foot flex space that's planned adjacent, which is going to have, office jobs and manufacturing jobs and things like that. But if you look at the location of the site, it's a 13-minute drive to downtown Durham. We've heard of all the employment coming to downtown Durham. It's a 22-minute drive to RTP. RTP is undergoing record job growth even during COVID. The bus line is right at the site at the Walmart Center. That bus line runs through downtown to RTP. You're within walking distance of a school. You're convenient to 85 and all that flexibility that provides. So we think that density would be a good idea here. A couple other things to point out. We do have an extensive trail system planned. We're committing to a total of 1.5 miles of trail on the project. This is all trail located outside of the sidewalks that line the roads. So if neighbors, once you're at the development, you'll have access to those public sidewalks and roadways, and they connect to the trails, and which connect to the pocket parks and dog parks. And I think those are all things that would benefit people that live there now. But again, I appreciate your time this evening. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edens. We will call on the other individuals who signed up to speak as proponents. So we had 4 other individuals, and one was a definitive yes. We do a new thing, and I'm just going to explain it so people understand. When people sign up, they're given the option now to say, yes, I'd like to speak. I'm undecided if I'd like to speak, or no, I don't think I want to speak, but I put my name down. I'm just going to read through all those names just to give people that opportunity. And that way, if you're here and you want to speak, you have the opportunity. If you would like to decline, you can decline, and we can move forward. The first speaker is Patrick Biker.
Yes, good evening, Chairman Busby. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, please go ahead.
Wonderful. Chairman Busby, members of the Planning Commission, my name is Patrick Biker. I live at 2614 Stewart Drive. I'm an attorney with Morningstar Law Group. I'm here tonight representing Scannell Properties. As Jared mentioned, Scannell is in the process of annexing slightly more than 200 acres directly south of this of Griffin Place. Within that 200 acres, we anticipate building in excess of 1 million square feet of light industrial space. We are a proponent for Griffin Place. In accordance with the staff report that you just heard, we think housing is appropriate at this location, close to the jobs that will be created within the Scannell Properties Light Industrial Park. Our only request on the record is for the determination that was just recently made by NCDOT. Again, we thank the Planning Commission for the 60-day deferral because it took NCDOT 59 days to arrive at that conclusion. But for that determination on the alignment of Northern Durham Parkway to be reflected on the development plan and the site plan for Griffin Place. With those conditions, we are proponents of this project. Thank you. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Next is Taryn Kavanaugh, who also signed up to speak as a proponent.
Yes, hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
My name is Taryn Kavanaugh. I live at 120 Turkey Oak in Cardinal Oaks neighborhood. I believe the proposed land is right off of that Cheek Road. I'm glad I was able to just learn more about this. I'm not opposed to the development. I think what we have learned based off of last meeting and this meeting has been beneficial. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Before we move on to Lindsay Dunn, I did notice that Jamie Guerrero signed up and was not looking to speak, but I see that they are in attendance. So Jamie, if you would like to speak, I just want to give you that opportunity. You're welcome to say I decline, and we can go from there. So Jamie, I think we have unmuted your microphone if you are.
Chair, I'm sorry, this is Mr. Edens. Jamie's actually part of our development team. I didn't realize he was on the call, so I apologize for that. Thank you.
No problem.
Hey, can you
Okay.
I cut Jamie off. I'll allow them to talk again. You can go ahead, Jamie. I apologize.
Looks like he's muted at the moment.
This is Jamie Guerrero. I have nothing to add at this time, but I'm here in case there's some questions that come up.
Thank you.
Mhm.
As we will move on then, and these are individuals who signed up who would like to speak as opponents, and each individual will have 2 minutes or so. So if you, again, give us your name, your mailing address, and share your comments, and we'll start with Lindsay Dunn.
Hey everyone, Lindsay Dunn here, 2522 Farrell Road. Nice to see you all again. As Mr. Edens mentioned, there was a community meeting held by him that residents were invited to attend via Zoom, and that was helpful in being able to ask questions. My sticking point was, and continues to be, the density of the development proposed at 462 units, with that average of 5.6 units per acre being as high as it is. It's such a big contrast to what we have now. There were 2 questions asked that I thought were pretty insightful. One was, Mr. Edens, would you want to live there in the proposed Griffin Place? And his answer was that he had lived somewhere similar before, indicating he's moved out and on. And everyone acknowledges we have a housing crisis, especially one of affordable housing. Yet the price continues to skyrocket. Another question that I asked is, why did you choose the number that you had, being that 462 units? And the answer seemed to come down to that it was not really thought out at all, other than meeting a minimum standard. And I'm just wondering if this is the best we can do for our residents. I asked the Planning Commission that you wait until someone proposes a development that will be an asset to our city and neighborhood, and something for the good of the residents, and to reward companies who have taken the time to really get to know what will fit into a community. I look at examples like the East Durham Glenstone neighborhood as proof that such a thing can be done, and this is not it. One more thing, he mentioned the industrial park. I still haven't heard what will be in this park, and they built the Walmart, and there are a bunch of empty buildings because people come. There are businesses that come, but they leave within 2 years. So I'm not sure you can name that as a great place that people will get jobs. And that's all I have to say. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Jason Bizdula. I know Mr. Bizdula had emailed us before and said he may not be able to make tonight's meeting. I don't see him here, but I just wanted to give the opportunity in case he's here under a different number. All right, I don't see him here. The next is Faith Neary.
Hello, thank you guys again for meeting with us and helping us work through this and understand what's going on. My husband's with me. He's actually going to bring something up, but Jason, if you could just come back to him towards the end and just see if he was able to tap in. I'd like to back up what Lindsay Dunn did say, especially about the industrial park and actually having jobs for people when no one's really filling up this one that's right around the corner. This one around the corner hasn't ever been full, and right now it's only at half capacity and they're in and out. So I was just very curious as to what you propose to put in this newer industrial park. I hope it will bring more action that will stick around and not just flee because the leases are too high. And of course, there is always the concern of many houses on 1 acre. But as I was reading through the document, I noticed that you're predicting less than 100 students in the middle school, high school, and elementary school, but yet 462 units. How do you come up with that number? Like high school, maybe 31 students, elementary school, 21 students. And I'm just wondering, how do y'all get these numbers? If there's going to be 462 units, I imagine at least half of those are going to have children in schools that need an education, that need somewhere to go where they're not overcrowded.
Yes.
It's number two, the impact on schools.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joe Neary. I'm just going to add to my wife's comments. It says that there's an estimated 31 elementary students, 16 middle school students, and 21 high school students that would impact the local school system. I just find that that is unrealistically low. And I'll just add another note. I've, as a county resident, I've really come into a lot of contest with the county and the city as far as code enforcement. It seems as if there is none. In several conversations with who I understand to be the code enforcement officer for the city of Durham, he told me that there is no one for code enforcement in the county. I've looked at all the code ordinances. There are an awful lot of residents running businesses out of their homes. There's an awful lot of litter in this area. The neighborhoods that have come up just down Carpenter and on the other side down Cheek Road, it just seems like the county and the city are not supporting these new developments, and I fear the same in this case. I've also been in contact over the last 15 years with state DOT trying to get the speed limits dropped on Farrell, Carpenter, and Joyner Road to no avail. I don't see any mention of speed limits changing on Farrell Road. I do anticipate over the years of this development, before its completion, due to the railroad tracks there at Junction and Farrell, that there won't be any long trailered construction equipment going across that intersection. And the only thing I see is all this construction equipment coming down Farrell Road from the north, which would go right across my driveway. I'm at 2517 Farrell Road, just east of the Carpenter Road intersection. And lastly, I'll mention, I don't see anything in this DOT or traffic, let me see, traffic impact. I don't see any mention of the intersection at Carpenter and Farrell right there at Joyner. Is there going to be a light there as well? I just would encourage the county commissioners and the planning departments to really think out the traffic patterns a lot better. I feel like this is going to impact a lot more than that's being anticipated. Thank you.
Thank you both for your comments. And just so you know, Mr. Edens and the applicant team, they have a few extra minutes. So if they would like, we will give them the opportunity to make any additional comments, including answering some of your questions that you raised.
Thank you very much.
Next is Robin Sorrell.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hi, I'm Robin Sorrell. I live at 2519 Joyner Road with my family, and we've lived here for 41 years. I believe, according to the map, the development comes right up to the back of our property, and it affects our land and our property probably the most of any of the neighbors on each side of us, Mr. Bazula and Mr. Price. So we planted trees along our back line 41 years ago in anticipation of perhaps, a development coming back there. We just felt like it probably would at some point. And, at this point, we're sort of okay with that. But as the others, I certainly would like to see it be less dense per acre, and for us to have, for the developer to not strip that whole piece of property as they do in most cases, to leave us a buffer so that we're not looking at the side or the back of people's homes and you know, we feel like, you know, our personal property is being infringed upon. And so that would just be my comment, that the land not be totally stripped. And I know it makes it easier to build, but that it not be stripped completely of all the trees, and that the density be lower. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have 3 other individuals who signed up. I don't see them with us, but I'm going to go through each of their names just in case. Leanne Camp, Andrea Sumner, and Nikki Taylor. I don't see any of them here, and Mr. Bizzulla has not had a chance to join the meeting either. So let me ask at this point, is there anyone else who would like to speak on this particular case during the public hearing? You can digitally raise your hand via Zoom, or if you're on the phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand. I don't see anyone else, but Mr. Edens, I do want to give you additional time for any final remarks, including the opportunity to address some of the questions or concerns that have been raised.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bezer. I appreciate that. I'll try to speak to 4 or 5 of these quickly if I could. Yeah, I was asked at the meeting if I would live in a neighborhood like that. And yes, my first home was in a neighborhood exactly like that with lots that size. And I did move out of that home, but that's because I lived in a starter home. And this project, the target market here is starter homes, and people often start, that's why they're called starter homes, because they do move on to other locations. So I didn't move out because of lack of love in the neighborhood. I just outgrew the house, is what tends to happen. The student count observation, of course, that's a staff report. We do not generate the numbers, and that's not what we do. The staff does that. But I think that report is comparing proposed zoning to existing zoning and what the difference in kids would be. I don't think that's saying that out of 462 homes, you're only going to have 32 elementary students. Danny can clarify that, but I think that's being misinterpreted. I understand the code enforcement issues in the county. Fortunately, this project will be annexed into the city as part of the project. So the city does have an active code enforcement office and a planning department. Keep in mind, we're also going to have an HOA for this neighborhood. The city mandates that we set up an HOA. HOAs also do some of their own enforcement. Just keep that in mind. Some concern about possible construction equipment. I understand that. Often on large projects like this, NCDOT will survey existing adjacent roadways. They'll require applicants or construction companies to put up bonds. Del Webb, if you recall, Andrews Chapel Road, Del Webb rebuilt a large portion of that, and that was due to NCDOT inspection and bonding. So I don't know how DOT is going to approach that here, but I would imagine that would be in the cards. And also to Ms. Searle, who requested the buffer. I mean, fortunately, we did add a buffer to her property as well. Only Mr. Bizzulla asked us for the wider 50-foot buffer, but we did extend it up those 4 parcels, him and the 3 parcels north of him. And again, I can give Danny those numbers later, but we did add a buffer there per her desire. And I'll be glad to take any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to close the public hearing, and commissioners, we will move to you. And Commissioner Miller, I see your hand is raised. We'll start with you.
Sorry, landline was ringing. So I have some questions kind of all around. If I can, I would like to ask Jared some questions. Jared, remind me, is the right-of-way for the North Durham Parkway through Griffin Place dedicated or merely reserved?
It's being reserved. This is similar to, we did this also at Briar Creek for the ACC Boulevard extension. We reserved that right away at Del Webb also.
All right, thank you. And I also, it's not really a question, but I wanted to thank you and Patrick Biker and all the parties concerned for straightening out the North Durham Parkway alignment. And so the question that flows from that is, did the change in the alignment affect your unit count, Jared?
Not to the point of needing to modify the application. I mean, the change in the alignment has always been extremely minor on our side of Farrell Road. Most of the alignment changes are through the adjacent property, but it's not a major impact to where you would change any of your PDR density count or anything like that.
All right, thank you very much. And then because Commission Member Durkin isn't here, I will ask the questions that she normally asks. Is there anything in your development plan and the commitments associated with it relating to affordable housing or housing affordability?
Right, I appreciate the question. Yeah, we always, we've proffered affordable housing payments on every rezoning we've had since inception of the fund. We always make that proffer at council because I feel that's council's fund and a council decision. But we have a rate that we've used for years now, and we would definitely be proffering that affordable payment at the council meeting.
What's that rate?
$150 a unit. We've used that probably 8-10 times.
Thanks. The buffers that we learned about tonight, to rehearse those, you're proposing a 20-foot wide buffer down each side of the North Durham Parkway as it goes through the single-family homes portion of the project. Is that right?
Correct. Anywhere there are lots adjacent to Northern Durham, there'll be a 20-foot buffer.
And can you tell us what the opacity figure for that buffer will be?
I believe we're matching what the standard is for the boundary buffers, which is 0.4.
Yeah, it's 40%. And then there was a proffer of a 50-foot buffer for the properties that face Joyner but back up to your property. What would the opacity in that be?
That's honestly, I don't know those numbers. The chart has, I would imagine it may be 0.6, but I don't want to say because I'm not the landscape person in our office as to what that would equate to, but it would be per the code standard for a 50-foot buffer.
Would it be safe to say that it's 0.4 or higher?
I think that would be correct, yes.
Okay.
This is Danny Cultra. The equivalent of a 50-foot buffer is an 80% opacity.
Oh, 80%. And so, Danny, because this is a concern of one of the neighbors who spoke, can you explain what that means?
Well, the opacity is how much you can see through a buffer. So, 80% is pretty opaque. 100% is fully opaque, that you can't see through it at all.
And so what we're talking about is plant materials or other materials would have to be put in the buffer to create that 80% opacity, at least at maturity. Is that what that means?
Well, and actually, if a buffer is proffered at 80% opacity, that means you can't actually even grade into it. It would have to be left untouched. If it's vegetated, if it's existing vegetation, you wouldn't be able to grade into that.
Okay.
You would have to leave it untouched as is, and you might even have to supplement vegetation to bring it up to 80% opacity.
In places, maybe. And so, and then what would be on the other side of that buffer would probably be the backyards of single-family homes. Is that right?
It's possible. I would need to look. Yeah, I would need to look and see where that's located.
Yeah, it would be depend on the site plan, but nothing other than single-family homes and perhaps some amenities style building would be in that.
There would be nothing in that buffer.
In that section of the project. That's the single-family home section of the project.
That's possible. Yeah, and I'm not even sure where that location is. Jared hasn't defined for me where that is.
All right. But Jared, it's safe to say that we're talking about the buffering the property line of those properties that currently face Joyner.
That is correct. And I can read the parcel numbers because I keep promising to. Well, I can later, but you're pointing to the right location, our eastern property line that is adjacent to those 4 lots.
On the northern side, on the northern half of your project.
Exactly, adjacent to Mr. Bajula. Yeah.
Right, excellent, thank you. And then, so then I have a kind of a related question to buffers that maybe Mr. Biker can answer, but somebody can answer for me. So we're going to build residential units in property that is, if this is approved, we'll be building residential units south of Gear in property that's currently zoned IL. And so when you've got an IL property against an IL property, there's no buffer. So I'm assuming that the Scannell people have not built a buffer into their plans. And so how, if at all, will the residential units that would be built in the IL zoned portion of the property, how would those be buffered against what's going on the Scannell property? How will that work?
I believe, though, I'm not sure the status of the annexation or site plan for Scannell, but if the zoning is ultimately approved and this becomes a residential zoning district that takes effect prior to their site plan and annexation be approved, if there are buffers required, then they would be required on the Scannell to match the most current conditions, I believe.
And what would that buffer be?
Again, I'm not.
Well, maybe Danny can answer.
Yeah.
Let me look at this again so I can at the development plan. So currently, and this is to the southernmost.
This is that southern portion, below Gear Street.
Because the Scannell property is undeveloped currently, this site only requires the 20%, 40% opacity buffers, a 20-foot, 40% opacity buffer. Now let me look in the Unified Development Ordinance at the project boundary buffer table. And so I can see what the requirement is, because that is an IL zoning for that one.
I believe it's a 0.8 total, Commissioner Miller. So when it's all done, said and done, it'll be a 0.8 allocated between both Griffin Place and Scannell properties. Our annexation is pending before the City Council. We have not submitted a site plan, and we really can't do that until after the annexation is approved.
Mm-hmm.
But the UDO requires a 0.8 total.
I just wanted somebody to reassure me that this won't be one of those situations because of the shifting zoning that we could wind up with a residential project next to an industrial project without an appropriate buffer. Is that possible or likely depending upon timing of this?
It will not be. It will not be. There would still have to be the applicable buffers between both properties.
Right. It might be on one or the other or shared by both.
It would be shared by both. It's just that because that other one's vacant, this one only requires the lesser of the buffer, and the other one, when it comes in, it will have to supplement the remainder of the 80% buffer.
All right. And I'm hoping that when and if that occurs, that the two developers will coordinate a well-designed and well-tended buffer. And then switching back to the North Durham Parkway, this is for city staff. Can somebody give me a picture, a mental picture of what a section of that road would look like in the Griffin Place property, the north side? We're going to build the North Durham Parkway through there. We learned today that's going to be on a new alignment that shifts a little bit towards the west, and that the design speed will be 40 miles per hour for an actual speed limit of 35 miles an hour, and that we're going to have homes backing up to that that will have a 20-foot wide planted buffer. But what will the actual section of that roadway look like itself? Can anybody tell me what that would look like? What the planning would be? Ms. Thomas?
That would be better for Earlene, yes.
Yes, Earlene Thomas, Transportation. So the full build out cross section for the Northern Durham Parkway is a 4-lane divided facility with bicycle and pedestrian facilities incorporated. Separated.
So starting at one property line, I'm envisioning that we would have some right of way and then a sidewalk and then a little bit more right of way because sidewalk, you don't want the sidewalk right up against the curb. And then we will have 2 lanes and then we will have some sort of division there, which may be concrete, but it may be with 110 feet, we've got some room to work. It might actually be grassy, and then we would repeat the same thing on the other side. Yes. Unless alignment inside the right-of-way required us to use it in a lopsided way. Will there be street trees?
So the UDO does require street trees within the right-of-way. So I guess if you needed a mental picture, it would be similar to MLK Parkway.
Okay, and who would plant those trees? This is going to be a DOT. Whose road will this be and who will build it?
This will be a DOT road eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Portions of it are being built by development and then taking over for maintenance by NCDOT.
Mm-hmm. But clearly that's not going to happen here.
No, NCDOT will, once the road is constructed.
Right, yeah, no developer is going to build this. And if the
Correct.
NCDOT probably doesn't care about what our UDO says, does it?
Well, NCDOT has its own planting guidelines,
mm-hmm.
and they do plant trees within the right-of-way and those types of facilities.
And so for this design speed, will there be a fence at the outer limit of the right-of-way on either side, or is this facility wouldn't warrant a fence?
NCDOT generally does use fencing for their control for facilities that have controlled access, meaning, there are no interim access points for individual driveways. However, I don't know that they do that on every facility.
Right. Well, that's very helpful. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I think I've exhausted my questions. Everybody's been patient. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Commissioner Miller. Had trouble with my mute button. We will move to Commissioner Amendolia.
Thank you, Chair. My first question is for Patrick Biker. I know you haven't yet hit site plan and you're not in the leasing business, but I'm curious if you or your client already have a sense of the type of facilities that'll be in this industrial park. Some helpful figures, if you have estimates, would be number of jobs estimated or number of businesses that might be in the area, and kind of a sense of the industries and potential pay scales that those businesses might pay.
Nothing specific at this time. Sorry.
Thank you. The second thing I did want to address Faith Neary's comments about schools, because I do think sometimes the kind of projections we have in these reports can be a little confusing. And I think Jared is correct that when it says plus 31 elementary students, plus 16 middle school, and plus 21 high school, that's an addition. Those are additional students based off of this proposed zoning. And so if it were zoned, if this rezoning were to pass, that second row is perhaps the more useful to get an idea of the expected impact based off of this proposal, which would be that 40 elementary, 21 middle school, and 28 high school students. And I'd love to give Danny a chance to add anything or correct anything that I have said to help provide some clarity on that.
I'll try to summarize how we derive that, and I might get Michael Stock to add on to that too. We have a matrix that was developed several years ago in conjunction with Durham Public Schools, and it's a spreadsheet that's developed. We put in numbers based on single-family townhouses, apartment units, and it spits out the number for us based on the number of units that we derive at. So it gives us the numbers based on the total number of units and based on each unit type. But it was developed in conjunction with Durham Public Schools. And that's what we utilize based on the proposed zonings that we have.
That's correct. Danny is correct. Sorry, Michael Stock with the planning department. It's a multiplier based upon the type of unit. It was developed with Durham Public Schools. It's not a perfect estimate, but it is an estimate. There's so many different contingencies when you're even thinking about the number of kids that a development is going to generate. It's just that basic multiplier and it's an estimate, but B, Durham has lots of school choices. You can go to your neighborhood school, you can go to a magnet school, you can go to a charter school, private schools. In my own neighborhood, I like to bring it up. I can think of 5 or 6 different schools just for elementary schools that all the kids in my neighborhood are going to, not just my local elementary school where my kids go. So we are working actually right now with DPS to update those student generation rates. Actually, we have a meeting with them this week. So hopefully we will get improved methodology, but I do anticipate that whatever methodology we come up with, it'll still be an estimate.
Great. And so if I could summarize, essentially there's a model that just estimates how many students there are, and it's based off of data we have currently about how many students are in the school system and current population trends, and we make our best guess. I do have a follow-up question for staff about this, because I've wondered about it before. Is it possible within the model to get kind of an idea of which schools in particular might be most impacted? I think having just kind of like an overall high level capacity information could be a little bit confusing, and it might not necessarily show like if particular schools are over capacity. That might be influenced by different projects.
We do actually look at the schools that are available in the immediate area, and they do have capacity numbers, and we use those numbers against those schools that are in the immediate area. So we know whether they are at capacity or over capacity when we generate those numbers for these rezonings.
Okay. And so if they were ever at or over capacity, would they make their way into the staff report?
They would.
Okay, great. Thank you. The last question I had was for Erling about the Northern Durham Parkway. And this question is maybe a little bit weedsy, but essentially I'm thinking about the impact that lane width can have on not speed limits, but actual speeds traveled. And so I'm curious if you have an opinion on whether people will drive at a 35-mile-per-hour speed limit based on the lane widths here, or if you think that the lane width would be conducive to lots of speeding.
So Erling Thomas, Transportation. So with NCDOT's agreement to the lower design speed, they will also be looking for and requiring other design commitments that really reinforce lower speeds with shorter straight sections of roadway, with the curves in the design, as well as separated multi-use path facilities for bicyclists and pedestrians. So there will be other design elements incorporated into this section that really gets toward lower driver speeds.
Great. Thank you so much. Those are all the questions I had. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Williams, you're next.
Thank you so much, Chair Busby. I want to first thank Ms. Dunn for her statements early on. She kind of set the tone pretty much for the method in which I'm thinking in terms of how we're approaching development and working on things. And as I was reading through this proposal, I did have a question before I get into what my thought processes are. What are the average sizes of these single family homes as well as these townhomes, square footage? If you have that as of yet. If you don't, then I guess you just don't.
Yeah, Ms. Williams, I know that we did have a zoning condition that limits the width of the townhomes to 20 feet, which I know will be conducive. I mean, I don't have the square footages. They are supposed to be smaller units. This is, a workforce starter home type housing, so they'll be on the smaller side, but I don't have the exact numbers with me right now.
Okay, I was asking that because it was compared to Milan Woods with a price point of $225,000, which is fairly average, and the average square foot home for that is 1,360, and those are single families homes. So I was just wondering if there was any representation for that. But I did have some thoughts when I looked at the price point at $180,000 or $220,000. I could see how that would be fairly reasonable for the average home buyer in a starter home. But I did have a concern because I see that there's a dog park that has a square footage of 43,560 square feet. Yet for these kids and these people that will be moving into this area, you only have allotted 8,712 square feet for the kids to play in. And I'm assuming most of these people won't have front yards. So I was kind of concerned that there was more space given to the pets than it was to the kids. And the total linear square feet for both the sidewalk and the trail and the space for the kids only came up to a total of 16,552 square feet. So that was something I was definitely wondering about. I was also thinking about, since this is going to be convenient to this new 1 million square foot lot, is there some type of recommendation that's going to be given in the pitch point? So it's supposed to be convenient for people to work in that new development that, hey, we're building this, we're gonna have new jobs. Could you possibly buy a home in this new development to kind of cut down on the amount of traffic, since there's obviously no improvement to bus stops or any type of travel in that area, but sidewalks are being built? I know there's probably not something that you guys have worked out, considering the fact that you didn't want to delay the previous meeting in order to work out the corridor adjustments to make sure that that worked with the project that was being proposed. So I was just wondering, because the question was posed by one of the residents as to what properties or what jobs would be coming to this area. And since, Mr. Eden said that this is going to be convenient to the new working spot, I don't know that we can guarantee that the people moving into this neighborhood are going to want to work there any more than we can guarantee that they're going to want to shop at that Walmart. So I just think that the density is high. I think that 462 units is high in this area. I do realize that you are committing to a 100-year floodplain runoff, and it's already being built in a 100-year floodplain area. I think that given the amount of proposed units in this particular area are going to create unforeseen circumstances, but due to a lack of thought process in planning and what we're trying to get to. And I definitely have concerns about the fact that density is needed in this area. Density is not needed in an area where the infrastructure does not support it. And I'm totally against the thought process that if you build it, they will come. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. And the traffic adjustments being made for coming off of 85 and different things like that, it's not really an issue when we have other neighborhoods on Cheek Road and Junction Road, and those areas need to be upgraded to handle the amount of traffic that will be coming to and fro this area, especially on Junction Road. Because once you leave Junction Road and you can cross over to 98 and Ross Road and some long-standing neighborhoods, you kind of have some issues. You're going to increase traffic on those people trying to avoid 540 and Highway 70 because they can cross over Junction Road, pick up 98, take US 50, pick up Capitol Boulevard. So, and 98 is a 2-lane highway. I know it's not your concern. It's just that these may be things that the average developer does not think about. And I think that the responsibility to the neighbors of the existing people, it outweighs sometimes the lack of consideration for new neighborhoods as they're coming in and what those impacts will be. And I think that a lot of times it's just because the land is available. And I think that most developers piggyback out the fact that we've had an administration that defines density as the answer to the problem. So I think that we've got to be extremely considerate in terms of how we go about doing it. And I think the fact that Ms. Dunn said that the question was asked, how did you arrive at a number of 462? And I think the basic response to that was because it could be done. And to me, that doesn't really exemplify any type of planning. It doesn't exemplify any type of intention behind this project besides the fact that it's available when we have a very serious issue that we're trying to actually address within the city and the county of Durham. And I think that though the resident voices were small today, they definitely were heard. And I think that we need to move with as much intention and responsibility as possible as we move forward. And I also acknowledge the fact that we are an advising body to the city council, and my notes and my comments will reflect that going forward. And hopefully they will take that into consideration as they vote on this. So I did want to be vocal about my standpoints and my concerns about where the priorities lie in terms of this development, where it's going, why it's being implemented, and why it's there. And I do appreciate traffic lights. I do appreciate the ability to control certain amounts of things that you can control. And I don't know that traffic lights are the answer, because traffic lights generally cause more congestion than they cause anything else. They definitely don't really help unless you're turning across 4 lanes of traffic and there's no turn light. A lot of times traffic lights just cause traffic. So that's pretty much all the comments that I have as far as your development is concerned. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Commissioner Williams. Any other commissioners who would like to speak? I will just say to my fellow commissioners, I had a lot of concerns when this was in front of us last time. A number of them have now been addressed. This isn't everything I would like to see, but I think as Commissioner Williams said, we have seen some citizens who came tonight to support this in the area, and some who have raised some concerns that I think are valid concerns. But I'm on the fence. I think the fact that the speed limit has been reduced, I have high concerns about the higher speed limit right near a school. I still have some concerns about the parkway being right there, but I say all that to say I would welcome any additional feedback or comments from my fellow commissioners if you have them before we would move to a motion for approval and a vote on this. I don't see anyone else raising their hand, so it is also an appropriate time for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, in connection with case Z1900027, the development at Griffin Place, I move that we send it forward to the city council with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
It's properly moved by Commissioner Miller, seconded by Commissioner Amendolia, and we will have roll call vote.
Amendolia,
Yes.
Baker,
No.
Busby,
Yes.
Cameron,
Yes.
Cutright,
No.
Kinchin,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Miller,
No.
Morgan,
Yes.
Williams,
No.
it passes 6-4.
Commissioner Lowe, were you passing to vote again in a moment or passing in for the entire vote?
I voted yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He voted yes. Mhm.
I heard pass. My mistake. I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's okay.
Thank you, everyone. We will.
I don't think we have a pass option.
No, not even on your last meeting, Commissioner Miller.
I was sitting here thinking I've never seen that before. My apologies for mishearing that. And we will move to the next item, and we have case Z20046, the old Bahama fire station, and we'll start with the staff report.
Thank you very much. Michael Stock with the Planning Department. My colleague Alexander Cahill will be running the presentation, so I don't cut out on you. Also, that is why I'm not showing my video, so I can stay in contact with you. Let's see it. I'll start once it pops up. There we go. Cool. Thank you very much. This is a request by the Bahama Volunteer Fire Department for two parcels. Both have the address of 1426 Bahama Road, located in the county. The existing zoning of the parcels are, one parcel is zoned commercial neighborhood CN, and the other parcel is zoned RS20, residential suburban 20, and both are located, in fact, that whole area is located in the Lake Mickey Little River watershed overlay. The existing future land use designations is commercial for the CN zone property and very low density residential for the RS20 property. It is in a rural tier. All the Bahama area is in rural tier. And the overall site acreage of both parcels totals 0.76 acres. The proposal is to bring both parcels under one zoning designation, CN, with a text-only development plan, so we'll have a D on it, so it would be CND. And the recommended FLUM would be to, if it was approved, zoning would approve, it would, the designation of the very low density residential parcel would change to commercial to match with the CN. The text-only proposal is to prohibit bars, nightclubs, and other similar establishments that serve open alcohol on the premises, that those uses would not be allowed. Next slide, please. As you can see, the site is along Bahama Road, just south of the intersection with Stagville. The site fronts along Bahama Road, and you can see in the peach color the area that is currently zoned CN, including that one parcel, and then the back parcel is zoned RS20. Next slide, please. And the similar FLUM designations match those zoning designations pretty much. Again, the parcel fronting along Bahama Road already designated as commercial, and the request, if approved, would change the back portion also to commercial designation. Next slide. And there is an aerial shot Generally, all the development around that site is of a commercial development, small scale commercial development. There's an old post office there. There's electrical contractor's office. There's a gun shop, and there's some other uses around there also. Next slide. This is just the plat of the area. I tried to, in my shaky drawing hand, kind of show the outline of the two parcels. As you can see, the parcel that fronts along Bahama Road serves as the driveway and service entrance to the site of the building itself, which is, and in the report you've seen photos of the fire station itself. Next slide. And again, the proposal would be for CN with a text-only development plan, and the prohibition that is proposed by the applicant is to prohibit bars, nightclubs, and any other similar uses serving open alcohol for on-site consumption. And there was a neighborhood meeting that was held. This application was submitted prior to the COVID outbreak. It's an older application. They did hold neighborhood meetings in conjunction with the requirements at that time, and that information is provided. There was one phone call that staff received, and I did not receive the phone call, and it was from a neighbor who indicated that she was concerned. I believe it was a female caller. Indicated a concern about property values, but that was the only resident or any other community member contact staff had received. And this case has not been on Social Pinpoint for that long. Social Pinpoint is a newer application. Next slide, final slide. And again, except for the flume designation for that RS20 parcel, staff determines that the request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and other adopted ordinances and plans. And again, if the zoning is approved, the site that has the designation of very low residential would be converted to a commercial designation. Thank you. I'll be happy to answer any questions. And I believe the Bahama representatives from the Bahama Volunteer Fire Company are also present.
Thank you. We'll open the public hearing, and we did have 3 individuals who signed up to speak as proponents, and they are Len Needham, Brian Eaton, and Jennifer Ganser. And so you are welcome to give us your name, your mailing address, and take a few minutes to share your comments.
All right.
Unmute for a moment.
Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Good evening, Chairman Busby and the rest of the commissioners. My name is Ryan Eaton. I live at 105 Pinecrest Drive. I'm the president of the Bahama Fire Department Board of Directors. I'm also here with Chief Len Needham, who's the fire chief of Bahama Fire Department. We are both proponents for the zoning map change, and essentially we're just here to take any questions you might have.
Thank you both very much. And Jennifer Ganser, is she in attendance?
Hi, I'm in attendance. Thank you. I support the petition as a nearby neighbor. No comments at this time.
Great. And what's your mailing address, Ms. Ganser?
9518 Quail Roost Road.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there is anyone else who was in attendance that would like to speak on this item, you can raise your hand and we can recognize you. Okay, I don't see anyone new who's raised their hand, so we will close the public hearing. And commissioners, any questions or comments? Commissioner Miller?
Yeah, this is kind of interesting. I wrote out there, I have a couple of questions. I mean, it's obvious that this building was kind of tucked back behind because it was convenient. The property that actually fronts Bahama Road is pretty narrow. It just provides a driveway. And then there is a kind of a drive that runs all the way through the property and comes out. Is that Stagful that it enters onto, or I don't know what that road is that when it cuts the corner there. Is that just a drive or is that a public street? Can anybody answer that? Kind of the back way out of this property?
Yes, sir. This is Brian Eaton again. That is just a driveway.
And will that stay or will that get cut off?
That would stay at this time. Yes, sir.
And so then my question for the staff is if this property is being used for CN uses, can you have a driveway, a private drive that goes over residentially zoned property for access?
Well, this is Michael Stock with the Planning Department. It's an existing condition. Technically, that would not be something that would meet ordinance requirements, but I'm not aware of anything that would prevent someone from using it if they so chose to use it. Obviously, it's running through a different person's private property, and if they had concerns, they would definitely not want that traffic going, but that would be addressed at site plan. So
then the question comes is if somebody brought a site plan for this property as a CN piece of property, could a site plan be approved with an access point over a residential piece of property?
It's an existing condition, so I'm not aware of any condition that would require them to cut it off or remove the driveway, but they can't propose it as their only entrance, and it would be an enforcement issue after that.
If they made improvements to the parking or something like that, would they be allowed to keep it?
I don't see why they wouldn't be allowed to keep it because it's an existing condition. All traffic would be required to be directed towards Bahama Road.
All right. And then the next question is I want to make sure I understand the CN zone as it might be applied up here in Bahama. How big a building could be on this property, zone CN? What are the dimensional requirements? Yeah, help me with that. Because there's a square footage requirement and there's a height requirement.
Yeah, let me pull that information up for you. Hold on for 1 second.
Thank you, Michael.
I thought I had it pulled up and I apologize for the delay.
It's all right. I should have looked myself. I didn't think about it until we were talking.
So in the rural tier, CN is obviously allowed. They do have, it was noted that there's a minimum lot area, actually the minimum lot acreage because of the overlay has a 3-acre minimum. It's currently non-conforming, but it's an existing non-conformity, so it wouldn't necessarily prohibit development. There's the maximum building square footage is 20,000 square feet project floor area. Building coverage percentage, though, is a maximum of 23%, and the height would be 25 feet maximum.
So some follow-up questions. So this site isn't, if we rezoned it, we would have a site that would still be too little for CN. Can we do that?
Yes, it's currently non-conforming no matter what the zoning is, because of the watershed overlay. So the issue isn't that the CN zoning is creating any new non-conformity. The watershed overlay already has that 3-acre minimum.
It's compounding the non-conformity. It's doubling down on it.
Actually, it would alleviate the non-conformity because it's adding property to a site that's already zoned CN, and it's reducing the non-conformity by enlarging the site.
It's reducing it, but it isn't reducing it enough.
That's okay by ordinance.
All right. That seems strange to me. And so the existing building then is the building that's going to be there. because even if this is approved, you wouldn't be able to build on the non-conforming property unless you stayed on the footprint of the current building. Is that right? What could you build on this property if this rezoning goes through?
You could, I don't know the exact plans for, you might want to ask the applicant as to what their plans, but
I want to know what you can do, not what they plan to do.
I understand that. Thank you. There are setback requirements, which are minimum 25 feet. So, and a lot of the surface is already impervious surface. So they could build a bigger building if they so chose, 20,000 square foot maximum, but 23% building coverage. I don't know the percentage of the building to the building coverage requirement. So that would have to be taken into consideration.
So even if the lot is too small, you could still build outside the current footprint?
Yeah, non-conforming lot doesn't equate to non-conforming structure. Those are two separate non-conforming situations. And I'm not certain that the building itself is a non-conforming structure in and of itself.
Yeah, it would be close. It's 2 full stories.
Right.
And it could be right at 25 feet or even a little higher.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's all very useful information, and that helps me.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Those are my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. I really don't have a question. Just want to make a comment to. I met with Ryan Eaton and Chief Lynn Needham yesterday at the site, and we spoke in depth. And just want to say that I will be voting for this, and hopefully other commissioners will be voting for it as well. I think the primary purpose here is to prohibit any bar, nightclub, or other place that's business that serve alcohol consumption. And again, I'll be voting for it, and hopefully other commissioners will be voting for it as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Lowe. Commissioner Cutrick.
I guess this is a follow-up to Commissioner Miller's concerns and maybe a clarification to Commissioner Lowe's. I guess what is the point of this this rezoning? I guess I'm not clear, like why you'd be doing this. And so this is for Mr. Eaton or Chief Lynn Needham.
This is Chief Lynn Needham. I'm 5800 Brick House Road. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, we're wanting to get rid of the property and just put a little low residential, commercial use in there, and we just want to make it conforming. We want to restrict it to try to keep the community in a little small community and keep anybody, in there from alcohol or anything, any disturbance, just want a little small shop in there. The fire department has moved from that location, and we want to take that taxpayer money and put it into some more fire equipment and not have to finance stuff, as we can get rid of that property and not have to maintain that. So that's what we're doing, is just trying to take care of the taxpayers' money at the best of our ability.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I will accept a motion.
Mr. Chair, then in connection with case Z2000046, the old Bahama Fire Station, I move that we send this case forward to the Board of County Commissioners with a favorable report?
That is correct. That is correct.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Miller to send to the Board of County Commissioners and seconded by Commissioner Amendolia, and we'll have the roll call vote.
Amendolia,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Busby,
Yes.
Cameron,
Yes.
Cutright,
Yes.
Kinchin,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Morgan,
Yes.
and Williams.
Yes.
Thank you. It's unanimous.
Thank you. We're going to move to the next item. We do have a new business item, which was on the agenda. This is the Planning Commission Policy Committee block length information item. And again, this is just information tonight, but the commissioners that have been working on this committee have given us an update previously and have the packet in front of us this evening for review and information. So we won't vote this evening. I think our intention is to look to potentially vote on a resolution next month, but I'm going to hand it to Commissioner Baker and the other committee members to take it from here.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as you mentioned, the Planning Committee the Policy Committee, the Planning Commission has been working away. I'll get into a little bit of that shortly. I have a little PowerPoint presentation. I have been working closely with Commissioner Amendolia, Commissioner Williams, and Commissioner Miller. Before that, we had Commissioner Santiago and Alturk before they left the commission. And we have a number of work items that we came up with. The first work item was to look at connectivity, street connectivity, specifically looking at block lengths. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, this short presentation. So what I'll do is I'll just run through this presentation. Hopefully it just sparks some interesting conversation. Mostly just pictures of aerials of different places, and then I'll get into a little bit about what's actually in the packet. So hopefully people have had a chance to review it. If not, you can take a look at it now. It's pretty short and sweet and pretty straightforward. And then if any of my fellow committee members would like to speak about the item or how we arrived at this item, then I hope that they'll feel free to speak up. So when we talk about connectivity, the first thing I want to bring up is just this really old map of Durham from 1891. There's a lot going on here. This is a view of downtown Durham. So you're looking north from downtown Durham. You can see Blackwell Street sort of on the left side of the screen. We're looking north, so going west over this way, you get to East Campus. This is where the downtown loop is. There's a lot going on, but I think the main reason I wanted to share this picture was because I think it illustrates the history and the origins of our streets and our blocks in Durham. And as you can see, what we built off of is a very tight-knit pattern and small blocks and short streets. And the then suburbs of that time, if you look on the upper left side of your screen, you can see the then suburbs, which is Trinity Park. Highly connected street network, highly connected pattern to be built for future development. And so over time, what we've seen happen in cities, not just Durham, but cities really across the United States, especially in the Sun Belt, is that pattern has changed over time as we moved away from travel by train and by walking and by horse and buggy. We moved more toward travel by automobile. And so we started building our cities not for people to travel around, but for cars to travel around. And you can kind of see how that's impacted our urban network of streets. And the main change is the disconnected pattern. Blocks used to be small, 300 to 500 feet in length. And today, as you can see in the bottom right, blocks are now thousands upon thousands of feet long, and sometimes even never connect. And I'll get into that here in a little bit. So this is kind of
And
what
Commissioner,
things look.
Commissioner Baker, just one item I should have flagged this in advance. I apologize.
Sure.
We are required to take a break at 7:30 and it is 7:05. So I was hoping, I think my expectation was kind of a brief informational item this evening, and there's one other thing before we wrap up. I would love to finish before the break if we can, as opposed to needing to take a 10-minute break and then return. So I'm just, if we can make that work, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Let me just skip ahead. We have changed our built pattern over time to become less connected. So here's an example from Hayti, the close-knit block pattern. And when we destroyed Hayti, we replaced it with this pattern that continues to today, the way that we build things today. A few different examples of that. It's important, the connectivity that we have is important because it creates more possibilities from getting from point A to point B. It also divides us. It separates us. So this is a development in Durham that has a variety of housing types, townhomes, single family, duplex, multifamily, commercial, but they're all absolutely separated from one another because of the street pattern that we build to. And what it results in is something that looks a bit like this. There's a sidewalk, but you could probably stand in a place like this and you wouldn't see too many pedestrians. The bottom here kind of shows our current pattern of growth with highly disconnected separation of uses, separation of housing types versus the more close-knit pattern. Going to skip over all this stuff. So why do we care about street connectivity? Well, it shortens walking and biking distances. It enhances pedestrian safety. It creates more physical activity and spurs more physical activity in our built environment. Lowers travel times, lowers response times from EMS. Allows reduced street widths. It's kind of an endless number of benefits. This is a quote that I won't read out from the Journal of the American Planning Association that gets into those. There are well-known best practices from policy guides around the country. There are best practices from communities around the country. And so how we've gotten to the items that are before you today, we held 5 different meetings with the policy committee. We developed the committee charge and working principles and consolidated the list of comprehensive plan policies. We then went out to the planning commissioners and talked about priorities and got feedback, established those work items, and then we ended up developing 3 different iterations of the block length standards. And as you can see, this is our list of work items that was based on that feedback provided by the Planning Commission. And item number 1 is street connectivity and block length standards. So what's before you today is a resolution, a draft resolution, and the actual standards themselves. So one thing I want to point out here with the resolution is the first 2 lines here. First of all, the Unified Development Ordinance states that a request to amend the text of the ordinance may be initiated by the Planning Commission. And then also when a text amendment is initiated, the Plan Director designee shall draft an appropriate ordinance and present that ordinance to the Planning Commission. What we've done here is gone ahead and put together an ordinance that we feel is the best ordinance. This is to initiate a text amendment. So what we see here, and when it comes back to us, we will not be voting on it to go forward to the elected bodies. Next time we see this and next time we vote on it, we will be voting to initiate the text amendment process just the way anyone else would initiate a text amendment process. Goes back to the planning department. The planning department makes any modifications, does any studies that they need to, then it would finally come back to us. So what is actually in the draft ordinance that we came up with? It really boils down to this table. And what the table is showing is on the left-hand side, you have various zoning districts in the UDO. Moving to the right, you have a maximum average block length. So let's say a developer comes in, they want to build a development on an 80-acre parcel, for example, as we saw today. Well, their maximum average block length in that land would have to fall into this category depending on the zoning district. There's also a maximum block length. So there's a maximum average and a maximum block length. So that would allow more flexibility for the developer. And then there's a maximum perimeter block length. And then actually the majority of the draft is exceptions. So what does not have to follow these proposed block length requirements? Of course, there are steep slopes, there are existing buildings and existing neighborhoods, and you don't want to cut through a building to meet these standards. There are railroad corridors, and there are existing roads and wetlands and water bodies and streams. And so whenever there's a development that is impacted by these items, then it would be accepted from these requirements. And then lastly, anytime there were to be a development, anytime there were to be a block length that exceeded the maximum average block length, but of course met the maximum block length, there would need to be a pedestrian connection through the block. So next steps, as I mentioned, this is an informational item today. Again, the Planning Commission is not voting on anything. This is not a public hearing, but the Planning Commission, next time we see this, will vote to adopt the resolution to initiate the text amendment. Then it goes back to the Planning Department. The Planning Department does its review and any modifications. Then the JCCPC reviews, and then it goes through the typical process. Then it would finally come back to us. We would make a recommendation to the elected bodies. And with that, I want to turn it over for any comments or questions or discussion. But first, I would just want to say a huge thank you. We've had some really awesome conversations. We've had several meetings. Again, 3 iterations of this draft, working very closely with Commissioner Williams, Amendolia, and Miller. And then, of course, we had a lot of good work from Alturk and Santiago before they left. So with that, I just want to turn things over to Carmen, Austin, or Tom if they want to say anything.
Thanks, Commissioner Baker. And why don't we come off the screen? It'll be easier to see everybody and see who's raising their hand. Commissioners on the committee, if any of you would like to make any statements on this resolution, you're welcome to do so.
So what I wanted to say, because I won't be able to vote with you on this, is that I wish I could. The work that's been done is good. I think it's valuable on 2 levels. One, in its substance, I think this is a useful addition would be a useful addition to our code and will make for better designed residential developments, which is something that I have wanted us to be mindful of for as long as I've been on the commission. But the other thing that I think the useful part is the exercise itself of us looking at places in the UDO that could be changed based upon our experience and acting on it and initiating it, taking a more active role as a planning commission rather than the passive role that we have where we wait for things to come to us and then we vote on them. I'd like to see the planning commission, like I said, take a more active role by initiating things. And I'm grateful to our committee chairman, Mr. Baker, for getting this rolling. So when this comes to you for a vote, I hope you will vote for it and support it. And if you're interested in helping Nate and the others who are serving on this committee, then that you get involved, because Lord knows, I think there are a lot of things in the UDO that the Planning Commission could make better and through the benefit of the experience that we all have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Commissioner Amendolia?
Sure, and I'll be brief. Thank you, Chair. I just echo everything that Commissioner Miller said and wanted to add that one of the reasons I'm excited about this proposal and hope that it moves forward is because we frequently talk about the auto-oriented nature of Durham and kind of rail against it at times. And I think this is one step towards counteracting that pattern. I think it's the first of many necessary steps we need to take to make Durham a more connected, pedestrian, bike-oriented place. And I hope you all will support it and welcome any feedback or questions y'all have, both on this proposal and the process in general. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Williams as the other current member.
Yes, this was extremely meaningful to me because, as you guys know, whenever we have developers coming in and they're talking about they're going to build these sidewalks and they only build them like 15 feet past the development and they don't go anywhere, that's an issue for me, because for me it's about kids riding on sidewalks or riding in streets, and a lot of times neighborhoods do not create true curb and gutter, so the streets aren't wide enough for people to actually do anything with. So the short walkable blocks introduces the ability to people to have lots are smaller, to have a fenced off backyard and be able to interact with their neighbors in the front. It's so they choose. And I think by tackling bite-sized chunks of what residents are facing, by creating these situations where the sidewalks and the connectivity are there, it invites developers to build things that serve the communities, that will increase the walkability for people to be able to take advantage of these sidewalks, like putting in grocery stores and restaurants and places to gather that are closer to residences, and opposed to overdeveloping residences and then there's nothing for them to get to. That's the reason why they don't extend the sidewalks. So I think that we're kind of forcing the hand when development comes about, with creating built-in considerations that they have to implement, or at least have to consider when they're wanting to build, and going beyond just the scope of the fact that the land is available and they should use it. So I like the work that was done on this, and I definitely like the dialogue that was had.
Thank you. And Commissioner Cartwright, you've been patient.
Thank you. This is, I'll say that I think this is really good work. I think that it's, I would say it's creative in its nature. I think it's a really good idea. I question whether it's idealistic. One thing we need to think about is, I guess this is part question and part statement. One, do you have or have you considered utilizing a development council or developer council, if you will? The first thing I think about when I see this is high infrastructure cost. So if you start to think about creating these neighborhoods, now all of a sudden you've increased my cost of developing this neighborhood because my infrastructure costs are going through the roof with all of the development or all of the roads, the additional roads that need to be created. And on the other side of that coin, we want affordable housing, and whether it's big A or little a. In this case, little a, right? Workforce or housing that people can actually buy, and increasing my infrastructure costs sometimes may have an adverse impact on the cost of the housing. Now I need to increase that in order to cover that cost. Just a thought, I'm just throwing it out there. I think this is good work. I think we should move in this direction somehow. The question, I think, is how do we actually get this implemented, and how do we mechanize this such that developers can actually put this forth in a time where lumber's through the roof, all your commodities are through the roof, and so now you're also increasing my infrastructure costs. It makes it really difficult to execute and get these things to pencil. So that's just my thought, my 2 cents. I'd love to figure out how to actually make this work. And if you've done some work on this, maybe now's not the time, but I'd love to, Nate, you, Commissioner Baker, you've invited me to sit in on this, and I'd love to do that and have some additional conversations with Williams and Amendola as well about how we actually could potentially make this happen.
Thanks, Commissioner Cutright. Commissioner Baker, you look like you would like to maybe offer a response, and then I see Commissioner Williams.
Yeah, Carmen, did you want to say something to that first?
Yeah, in doing the work on this, and most of the times, my consideration isn't for developers, because developers don't have consideration for the residents. So my consideration first and foremost is for the residents, because that's who have to live in these properties. And regardless of the price of lumber and different things going up, if you can't creatively come to the table with something to resolve your infrastructure issues, then it's obvious that this is not the place for you to build.
Commissioner Baker?
Yeah, I did have some slides on this that I skipped over. But actually, it's actually less infrastructure on a per capita basis to have a more walkable, connected environment. It actually uses less infrastructure, and there's less impervious surface on a per capita basis. There's less parking. There's the roads don't need to be as wide. But what I think is really interesting that you're getting at is that this is just one piece of the puzzle, that there are many, many other pieces that need to come together to make this truly sustainable and equitable and fiscally balanced. But this is a really critical piece. And I don't want us to leave here thinking that it's more infrastructure, because there's a lot of research on connectivity, and certainly an important part of having a connected city and a connected neighborhood is that it uses infrastructure very wisely, and it doesn't use more infrastructure. It tends to use about the same or even less.
Yeah, and I'll just say to wrap up the item for tonight, and again, this will be back next month. Part of the reason that it's going to be presented tonight, but the resolution won't be voted on tonight, is that we do want to also just have transparency in all of our work. So we wanted to talk about it this evening, then we'll bring it back next month for a vote. In addition, I think our other committees that the Planning Commission has created in the past few years have been always very clear about the work and the time that they've put in. So given all the turnover, I think in terms of transparency, what also we need to do is, wrap up this work, and we can create additional committees over time as appropriate with new members as they come on board. So I think the Planning Commission, we have been creating these different committees over time. And so knowing we've got a lot of turnover at the end of this month, that's something that we can vote on this in July, and then we can look at additional committees that we will form moving forward with new members as they come on board. I also know the staff, and this is something I think we'll hear more from them with the comp plan, we'll be creating a set of different committees as well. And I think that's something else that we on the Planning Commission should also be looking to engage in. We don't have to get into that tonight, but I think that's something else I want us all to be looking at, hearing from staff, having planning commissioners on all the different comprehensive plan committees that'll move that work forward as well. But I think that transparency is really important. So with that, thank you again to Commissioner Baker, all the other commissioners on the committee, and we'll have this on the July meeting agenda. Before we close the meeting, I want to do two final things. That was the official meeting. I do want to share that we had a request from Brandon Williams with the Walltown community for the Planning Commission to consider signing on to a letter from the Walltown community that some other neighborhoods have signed on to, that's going to the City Council, and it's related to zoning and development issues. And so I've sent this along to the staff, number one, to get their guidance about, is this appropriate? Is this in our rules of engagement for the Planning Commission? their feedback, and Michael Stock can talk to this, but their feedback is that, yes, it's related to zoning and land use issues that is in our purview. I also sent the actual letter. So Grace or whoever has that letter, if you could put that up on the screen. And again, they are looking to transmit this letter to the council in the next week or two. So it really was a tonight issue for us. And so let me just stop there to begin with. And Michael Stock, anything that you would want to add from the staff perspective on considering and potentially signing on to this letter?
Chair Busby, I do not. As you stated, the letter specifically talks about requests to potentially rezone, and that's a rezoning is an issue that obviously you're all aware of, that you take into consideration monthly. Your rules and procedures don't say that you actually have to have a case in front of you to make a comment or recommendation. So we don't see in this instance that there would be any concern with whatever resolution that you would like to draw up.
Thank you. And other commissioners, welcome give you the opportunity to speak. This letter has been circulating in the public, and Mr. Williams reached out to myself and Vice Chair Kenshin, along with Commissioners Baker and Miller. And so Commissioner Miller, give you the opportunity to speak.
Yes, by way of a parting shot, Mr. Chairman, since I won't be voting, I have already personally signed on to this letter in my individual capacity. I actually am going to ask the Planning Commission, you folks, to consider something more than signing on to a letter. I live in this area over near Northgate, and it is the subject of a huge amount of buzz, and some of it has not been very satisfactory. I think you're all aware and have read in the media the exchange of messages between the mayor and the developer over there, and there's a huge amount of anxiety in the community, especially in the Walltown community, but also the neighborhoods that radiate out from Walltown who are working with Walltown. And I have attended many meetings that Walltown has sponsored, and some of which the developer was invited to come speak. However, the developer is quit kind of attending those meetings. And there's, like I said, there's a lot of anxiety. Some of the anxiety is about the future of Northgate. Some of the other aspects of the anxiety is not actually knowing what's going on, not understanding the rules. And let's face it, they're complex. Not understanding what the developer can do under the current zoning, not understanding what can be done, if anything, or must we just wait for the developer to propose things, some of which the public won't have any, could have no real input into. So I'm going to ask the Planning Commission to consider something more than the letter. Again, as Nate has pointed out with regard to the text amendment, the Planning Commission is also authorized to initiate a zoning map change. And so I would like to see the Planning Commission reach out to the larger Durham community and become a forum for this issue, to schedule someplace on an upcoming agenda, a public hearing, and let all the people who know about it say, come and tell us what you think. And with the assistance of staff, if there are resources available to do it, to kind of lay out the issues. What can Northgate do without discretionary decision-making? And by that, I mean a rezoning, so that we all hear the same thing at one time. And that what can the city do as an initiator? And what role can the Planning Commission play? The general statutes that authorize cities and counties to have zoning and to create planning boards, as the statute refers to us, lays out a whole list of duties that can be given to a planning commission. One of those is to facilitate public engagement. And I think this is a place where our organization, again, taking an active hand in things, rather than just waiting for it to come to us, can really lift this thing up. I am so impressed with the folks in Walltown who have been organizing the public engagement, but I don't think that's fair. I'm glad they're doing it. I'm glad that they're learning. I'm glad that they're marshaling the resources. But I think that it's been brought to a point where public resources in addressing the larger community issue with regard to Walltown and Northgate ought to be deployed. This is, we have talked about for the last decade issues relating to gentrification and displacement. This is the epicenter of that issue. And rather than just waiting for it to happen, why don't we reach out and grab hold of it and see what we can do? How can we help? And so I think that's a good thing. And there are going to be people, certainly the developer and others, who will want to hear from too. But we can maybe at least force people to come to the table. We can have everybody hear the same thing at the same time, and we can really explore public initiated alternatives. And if this is successful, I can assure you there are other dead shopping centers out there that are going to present the same sort of issues to us. Most of them will be smaller than the some 60-some acres that comprise Northgate, and they will probably be located in the suburbs, but this is an issue I think that's really important. So again, I guess as a parting shot is I hope you will consider using the authority that you have to essentially grab hold of this and become a public forum for this and see where it goes, even to the point of initiating a potential rezoning of this property from the city side, rather than just waiting for the developer to decide for the rest of us. And so those are my comments on this important issue. Again, the letter is one thing, but I think there is a bigger role for the Planning Commission to play. And I hate to see citizens who are in a condition of anxiety struggle along doing what I believe we should be doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Miller. Any other thoughts or comments? And I think mostly just getting the temperature of the commission. The request from the community tonight was to review this and vote to add our name to it if we believed it was, one, it was appropriate, and two, we agreed with it. So I think to Commissioner Miller's point, there are certainly additional opportunities, and I will commit to continue to work with the neighborhood association and the community to see what else we can do that would fit their values and what they're looking for as well. But anyone else with any thoughts or comments? And seeing none, I mean, I would accept a motion for us to join the letter.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Planning Commission endorse the letter.
Second.
Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Miller and seconded by Commissioner Baker. And we'll have the roll call vote on the motion.
Mendolia,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Busby,
Yes.
Cameron,
Yes.
Cutright,
Yes.
Hinchin,
Yes.
Lowe,
This is one of those issues that I wish we could vote for more than once, but yes.
Miller,
Yes, ma'am.
Morgan,
Yes.
and Williams.
Can you write mine down as absolutely instead of yes?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I will communicate with Brandon Williams and let him know about this vote. I know the Walltown community and the neighboring communities really appreciate that. That is it for our business this evening, but I would be remiss if we did not take a few minutes to thank the 2 departing term limited commissioners. And we know this is their final meeting. I know many of you have reapplied, and I hope you get good news as those decisions move to the governing body. But Vice Chair Kenshin and Commissioner Miller are both with us for their final meeting this evening. And that's because they have been with us for maybe decades, but certainly a long number of years. It only feels like decades, Tom. But I want to thank both of you. You have been, Vice Chair Kenshin, serving with you as Chair and Vice Chair has been incredibly rewarding, and I've really appreciated all your guidance and your wisdom. Whenever you spoke in a meeting, I listened, and it was always on point and really thoughtful. And so, and you're just a lovely person. So thank you so much for your time and your service. And Commissioner Miller, you have done so much, the homework and the work you put in between meetings. I hope we'll continue to see you in new and different ways, but you've really put your stamp on our commission and really raised and elevated the debate and the work, and appreciate all you've done in the community. I'll also note, Commissioner Miller, I believe the City Council voted to recognize, passed a resolution in your honor last night as well. So I do want to thank both of you. I want to give you a moment if you would like. You will both be back, and I hope it's next month. And I'll communicate with you to work that out. But Vice Chair Kenshin, open the floor for you.
Thank you, Chair. It's been an honor for me to serve for 6 years. I've lived in Durham for 23 years now, and I couldn't be prouder to live in Durham. And the staff is so great. And serving with you all has been wonderful too. Tom Miller, one of my heroes, Brian, you guys are just great. I always said that if you guys ever moved me away from Tom, I would quit the commission. And then we got to leave completely and go on Zoom. So, it was a pleasure for me to sit beside him and read his notes and confer with him. And so I'm going to be sad to see him leave, one of my heroes, and all of you for your wisdom. And Chair Busby, we don't need a leader. We need a chair to keep the commission going. But you are someone who I consider to be a leader, and I will follow you many places. So thank you for, I think, a great job as chair. Your integrity, your wisdom, your thoughtfulness. So I'm going to miss you guys. I'm not leaving. I've lived for 23 years. I'll be here 23 years more. And I'm going to be fans of the work. And I appreciate you guys for moving us forward. So thank you for that, and I hope you continue it.
Thank you. And Commissioner Miller?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is kind of a bittersweet thing, but I certainly have had my innings, and I have really appreciated the opportunity to work with all of you and the other commission members that I've served with over time. I certainly have learned a whole lot. I came to the Planning Commission, quite frankly, thinking I knew right much about it, and that wasn't true. And I will leave probably incorrectly thinking that I know right much about it, and that still isn't true. But I say we have a great staff that's really responsive, and I've enjoyed working with all of you. I realize a lot of that time has been butting heads with you, but some of that is my nature, and I think some of that's because I was right and you were wrong. But again, I will be sorry to leave the Planning Commission, but I believe that the term limits are a good idea. And I think it's a good thing that we cycle off to give other people an opportunity so that the commission can evolve and grow and always at every time reflect the interests and the concerns of the community. So I'll be watching you. I will not be attending every meeting though. I know they will be a lot shorter. Thank you much, and I will look forward to seeing you one more time next month. Grace, we got new. Did the council not appoint 2 people last night? Can you tell us who they are?
They did. They reappointed Aaron Durkin, and then I was on that meeting until midnight last night. Hang on one second and I'll get you the other name. I actually jotted it down and lost my notes.
Was that Mr. Harrod?
It was Mr. Harrod, actually, yes. Mr. Harrod. Mhm.
Well, I can tell you all, he
Yeah.
is a person of my acquaintance, and although he will probably be very different than me, I think he is a great guy, and I think you'll enjoy working with him. And of course, I'm glad Ms. Durkin is back. I'm always uncomfortable when I have to ask her questions for her.
She was reappointed, and Mr. Harrod was appointed. And what we will do is we will wait to hear from Board of County Commissioners. They're on track to do their appointments on June 28th. And so once they make their appointments, then we'll have a training for all new members at one time. So.
Great. I would like to give commissioners, I know you will have your opportunity again at the July meeting, but you're welcome to make any comments. And I also do want to note Mimi Kessler is still with us, and specifically because she wanted to make some comments at this point in the meeting as well. But any commissioners who'd like to make any comments right now, you are welcome to do so. You can just raise your hand. Again, you can hold your comments until next month as well. Commissioner Williams.
I will gladly say thank you so much to Commissioner Miller. Your impact has been invaluable. I don't know that we can put any type of price tag on what you've brought to this commission, at least as long as I've been here, but not just to the commission, but to the community to which you truly serve. And I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you, because I do not know that I will have these same words next month. And it is on my heart right now to give you as much appreciation as I can. You definitely have formed my opinions and value that I probably did not have previously and would not have had you not been present. Commissioner Kitchen, I want to say thank you so much. You represent your community to the fullest extent possible. And even sometimes you stretch those limitations with your comments and the way that you respond to things. And I definitely appreciate the fact that you have pulled me to the side quite a few times. And I've acknowledged the head nods that you give sometimes when I'm saying things. And being fairly new to the commission and not being as well versed in certain aspects of it, the two of you and what you provide and the common sense matter in which you educate both the community and the commission it's been important to me. And I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Mimi Kessler, I would like to recognize you and welcome your comments this evening. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for the time to speak. I want to thank Tom Miller, and I'm thanking him on behalf of all of the residents for your instructions and your guidance and your voice for us in commission related things, both in the meetings and outside the meetings. You will be sorely missed. And I'm waiting to see who's going to step up to start asking the tough questions. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Mimi. Thank you again, Vice Chair Kench and Commissioner Miller, and we will see you hopefully at the July 13th meeting. With that, we are adjourned, and I hope everyone has a great evening.
Night, everybody.
Good night.